Dave Ratcliffe. I have been many places in the 68 plus years I've been circling around the sun. I started the website Ratical with a T on the September equinox 1995 because I understood that the internet, which now had a front-end interface with web browsers, was a very interesting development. And I have been initially working on focus of assassination of President Kennedy and the health effects of low-level ionizing radiation. That led me all over the place. I've met many people along the journey with whom I've been very grateful to know. And initially, I learned about Graeme from reading his go-to 2014 book, The 2001 Anthrax Deception, The Case for Domestic Conspiracy, an absolutely very, very detailed and not that long, I think it's a 160-page book that covers such a wide swath of something that happened more than 2 decades ago that was certainly another one of the test runs for what humanity has been confronting for now just over the last 3 years with the false promise of biosecurity and the rise of the biosecurity state. In 2000, I've done a lot of stuff on Radical, and I grabbed a couple of Graeme's articles when they came out, when they were first published, the Pentagon's B movie and I have to remember the exact title, I can't keep things straight, but the one that he named Beyond Their Wildest Dreams, September 11, 2001, and the United States Left. Those were both in 2017. And being just an archivist of sorts, homemade archivist, I don't have any training, but I feel it's very important to catalog and archive and witness aspects of our life and times. These 2 articles were very significant for me, and I knew more from Graeme reading them and linking them, creating copies and extending hyperlinks for references he was making. I've known Edward Curtin since meeting him at Jim Douglas's workshop in Western Massachusetts in December 2012 on JFK and the Unspeakable, looking ahead to 2013. And Ed is a very close friend. And last summer, he thought of having a Zoom birthday party for Graeme. His birthday was in July. And we tried to get Jim Douglas to join in. He didn't have the time, of course, working on his second incredible book. But Marty Schatz, myself, Ed, joined Graeme for a wonderful Zoom birthday party and covered a beautiful wide swath of things. And it was very special. I knew from before then that Graeme was dealing with coming closer and closer to walking through the door into eternity. And so in October, after that, during that birthday party, Graeme pointed out something about what he called, if we in this social movement of 9/11 dissent are not willing to tell our own stories, who will tell them? It was a very poignant moment because I think all 4 of us are very much devoted to creating records of our true living history that is ever more dismissed, omitted, distorted, and just covered up, censored by legacy corporate empire state media. And so I really enjoyed that connection. And I followed up in early October with just writing Graeme a personal letter, email, and he was very sweet in his response. It was just a general thing of wanting to share some ideas with him. And he wrote back saying he was wondering if he could ask a very mundane question, as he put it. He was looking forward to Ted Walter coming to his house to do filming for a documentary on him, and he realized he needed to go back and review the bulk of his writing so that he could be coherent in being interviewed. So he asked if I might be able to help him assemble those things. And I said, yes, indeed, sign me up, be happy to help. So that turned into making this digital book, which began in earnest that month in October. I very clearly aware of the time constraint. Another dear, dear friend of mine, John Judge, I met John in the 80s in California, and there was no one like John. There was no one like Graeme. John, I kept thinking for years and years and years, I need to go see John again in Washington, D.C., but I didn't do it. And then he died of complications from a stroke in 2014 at the tender young age of 66. So it really helped to push me more to realize, do whatever you want to do now. Don't wait. And so when Graeme brought this up in October, I thought, well, yes, absolutely, let's go. So I pretty much dropped most everything else because I knew he might leave sooner than later. And I wanted to be able to, A, have something that he could see completed so that he could also get responses from people he knew and have that connection and that visibility. And because if I wanted to ask him any questions, I needed to, do this while I could still ask him questions. So the motivation about telling our own stories was huge. And then he let me write the postscript to this book. It's the last little chapter in it. And as I describe in the postscript at one point, I'm reading just from the text here. In a 2017 exchange with Marty Schatz, Vincent Salandria, Ed Curtin, William Whitney, Rodolfo Cardona, and me, Graeme wrote about the process he explored in writing Beyond Their Wildest Dreams, September 11, 2001, in the United States Left. His motivation was, quote, to understand how people come to know the world and how we can open up closed minds, unquote. He explained some of this as his, quote, imagination approach, unquote, in the following. This is all Graeme's writing to this group of our correspondence email. I adopted the word, imagination, from German philosopher Gunther Anders, whose 1962 article, Thesis for the Atomic Age, had a big effect on me over the years as a peace and environmental activist. Anders said that in the nuclear age, we are doomed if we don't have imagination. He said, the basic dilemma of our age is that we are smaller than ourselves, incapable of mentally realizing the realities which we ourselves have produced. Therefore, we might call ourselves inverted utopians. While ordinary utopians are unable to actually produce what they are able to visualize, we are unable to visualize what we are actually producing. That's the quote from Anders. And then Graeme goes on. He also said that escapists of today do not hide in imagination. They hide in the ivory tower of perception because the senses are, quote, senselessly narrow, unquote. So he was giving a power to this word, imagination, that we don't normally give it. Imagination is what we give ourselves to when we have the courage to face the world, to actually visualize what is going on. It is, he says, part of the courage to be afraid. So whenever any of us is gifted by our Creator, we all have an irreducible connection to our Creator. Whatever we think is going on here, whatever we perceive as being the reality of our existence, every connection we make that is life affirming, life giving, and devoted to life on Mother Earth expands the energy of what we are here for, which is to increase, as Carl Jung said, to increase consciousness. Graeme was a magnificent embodiment, incarnation of iridescent soul whose light and love for all our relations was a fire that burned very, very brightly while he was here. We all have such a short amount of time here. It's very, very brief. Graeme's life is a wonderful reminder to all of us of what is possible to create and to manifest, understanding our inexorable connection to our Creator and to our time here on Mother Earth. So for me, a great, great gift was knowing very briefly, but very beautifully, Graeme MacQueen. Tom Slee, who also lives in Canada, I'm working with Tom to make a continuing improved PDF single file version of the Pentagon's B movie book. And in time, we will have an ebook available for sale. It will only have the text in it, so there won't be any issue with copyright control. And all the proceeds from sales of that book, meager though they might be, will be set up to be received by Graeme's wife, Sharon.